Barnes & Noble. We're going to start this video off by saying, well done, because this thing screams winner. Thank you to Barnes & Noble for sending us this sample. This is the Nook Glowlight 4 Plus. This is everything we expected from them and everything you would want in an ebook reader. Physical page turn buttons on both sides, a dedicated home button, USB-C, 300 ppi screen, and a 3.5mm headphone jack, so you can listen to audiobooks right on your unit. This is the first time any of the big three have had a headphone jack in the modern era. I can say for certain, we're looking forward to this one. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? First thing we gotta touch on is the way this thing is built. It looks so good. My only gripe is that it's big. It's not heavy, it's not thick. In fact, it's quite thin actually, and lightweight overall. It's pretty wieldy, but it's just a very big unit for a 7.8 we found. And that's because they have to accommodate for a lot of things. The physical page turn buttons, the home button on the bottom, and the fact that they kind of have to keep the bezels all relative to each other. So for example, you wouldn't want a very thin bezel up top, and then all the other bezels to be too big or too small. So it is very well scaled, but it's just a very large unit, all things considered. We'll start at the home screen and work our way out from there. If you tap the top right here, you will get your drop down. This is where you're going to have your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth, your glow light. We'll show you that a little bit later on. Night mode and volume. You also have your battery level. Let us go to the settings because there's a couple things we want to touch on in here. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, as we already said. Glow light is the exact same thing. This is just a dedicated menu. You can go like this and move it back. Library is very nice because you can filter things out. You can have unread items only, downloaded items only, or just show everything. Reader is interesting because unfortunately there's only one thing you can do in this whole subsection. They should have just called it key mapping or page key, and it does allow you to page key map them to a certain degree, but it really just alters the direction. You can't really do anything outside of that. So for example, you wouldn't be able to do a long press, a double press, or maybe assign this to be a refresh or a glow light on and off toggle. They don't give you that level of customization. It's simply just forward or back or forward. Going back here, we want to touch on a couple more things. Download and storage. I must say this is a very robust section. There's a lot of things in here. In fact, this is one of the most kind of extensive download and storage sections we've seen. You can clear cache, you can manage your storage, and you'll see out of the 32 gigs, you only really get 28. We can go to the second part here, and you can automatically move things to the cloud, automatically archive different things, and etc. If you go to the very bottom here, you can do screen. This is just the timeout. You can set the time, and then you can deregister your device down below. Library is your library. This is where everything's going to be, and as you see, we could filter certain things out if we want them or don't want them. Any of these little download arrows means that you can download those, and anything that doesn't have it means you already have it. You can press the N button to go home to the very beginning, and you know, it's not as responsive as the pop-up N button. I actually don't like it nearly as much. I would have really appreciated the one that is a physical button that is hardware driven, not kind of software driven on the side bezel here. Store is really interesting, and this is something we want to point out because you have the ability to toggle between audiobooks and ebooks, and only Amazon has allowed you to do this up until this point. Now, these devices still don't have any actual onboard audio, and a lot of that went away back in 2010, 11, 12 for most of these guys, but it is very interesting how they added back a 3.5mm, so that's really cool. You can scroll up and down, left and right, choose your favorites, choose your categories, nonfiction, fiction, etc., and you can read customer reviews, editorial reviews, and more like this. If you want to go over to the audiobooks toggle, this is where you're going to be browsing for your audiobooks. There's various things you can do as well as reading them. You can listen to them, and you can choose audiobooks that have an ebook attached and vice versa. And from here, I can do a couple things. I can do a free with trial, in which case it's going to make you sign up with something. And it does say right here, they're going to bill you monthly $14.99 per month. After 30 days, cancel anytime. You can make sure you want to dive into Barnes & Noble audiobooks or not, or you can just buy it as is right there, or even play a sample. Nook Readouts is a little kind of a social media community where you can read blogs and excerpts or little serial reads, and all of this is free to read. You can just say start reading and you go ahead and start reading them. So this is kind of nice to kind of check back daily and see what's been updated. The last setting on the bottom is search, and this will be a good time to look at the keyboard. The keyboard isn't exactly that quick, but if you just let it catch up, it does play a lot of catch up, but it does get the job done. And when you click on search, it'll search through various places, including the store. It will also search your library, as you can see there, and it just kind of covers all the bases. Here we are, everybody, eBooks. Now, I must say, I absolutely love page turn buttons. I've always loved page turn buttons. I even like using the different applications and toggling the volume controls to do page turns as well. You can tap, you can press the side, or you can press the page turn buttons on either side, which is really cool. Now, I must say, before we continue, look at this. You can long press on the page turn buttons and it whips through the book. It's actually pretty quick and there's not a whole lot of staining, and it does do a quick kind of courtesy flash refresh to just get everything out of the way. You can also do a double tap, and what this is going to do is do a chapter jump. Very, very smart. Absolutely critical feature to ebooks. I believe this to be very useful. If you double tap, it jumps to the chapter and it bases everything off of the contents. So if an ebook can have contents, which all of them do, it is going to work perfectly fine. Now, you do have a couple things you can do from here. Tapping in the center brings up the bar, so you can click on this and you can alter the text size. You have a bunch of different options right there, and you have fonts. You can choose different types of fonts. Now, this isn't very quick. It's clean and crisp and looks great, but none of it is very quick. We're very spoiled by Onyx and Big Me and High Read and all these companies that have X mode and ultra fast. So you must realize that this is an ebook reader and you must be patient with it. And there is no system-wide A2 mode. There's not even an A2 mode when you do different things like quick navigation. So you have to just very much be patient with it. You can change the thickness, thin, thick, or regular, and you can change the margins, the line spacing, and the justifications as you see fit based on what kind of book you are reading. Once you're back into this, you can long press on something, and once you do, you get a bunch of things that pop up. You have a definition, you can search, you can copy, and you can highlight. Once you do highlight, it's going to stay gray like that, and you can select a large amount of range as well by going like this and grabbing the anchors. Now, a lot of people always ask, how big can the font get? Because some people utilize this because they have eye issues, etc. So if we go all the way to the absolute biggest font, now granted, this isn't a very large e-reader, but it's not a 6-inch. But this is essentially the experience you're going to get. If you pair it next to a smartphone, it's going to look about that big. So you can see only about 3 to 9 words fit on any page at any given time in its largest size, but it is very high quality. This is what we've all waited for, audiobooks. Now, you have to note, because there's no speakers on this, if you try to open an audiobook, it won't let you. It needs to have Bluetooth connected or the actual cable, 3.5mm, plugged in order to even open the audiobook. It's all very simple, however. Grab your portable speaker, plug it in via the 3.5 or connect it via Bluetooth, whatever your fancy is, and then click on the audiobook.
Grace Bennet had always dreamed of someday living in London. Never did she imagine it would become her only option, especially not on the eve of war. The stop within Farringdon Station, its name clearly marked on the wall inside a strip of blue set within a red circle. People hovered on the platform, as eager to get on as those within were to get off.
In the world of e-readers, this is pretty surreal that we actually have audiobooks on a Nook, because we haven't experienced this thus far. You will see you have a bunch of things here. You have different chapter skips, 30 seconds forward, 30 seconds back. You have different speed modes, which, as you heard, it didn't sound that great at 2x speed. In fact, that's quite the challenge to understand. You have sleep timer, you have bookmark, you have volume, which is very useful because there's no volume keys on this thing. You can move up and down. I must say it's a very bassy experience, but that's all going to be attributed to the kind of speaker you're using. And yes, you can use wireless Bluetooth headphones as well, don't worry about that. And you have contents and bookmarks, and this is going to go off of the downloaded books content metadata, and you'll see here that it actually has timestamps. So certain timestamps will be at certain intervals, and you can go and search through that respectively. So I must say, it is a very clean, very well laid out audiobook UI. Very, very high quality. We have warm mode, which is a very strong orange candlelight, and you have the middle mode, or you have cold mode. Again, the UI functions are a little bit slow, although they are very accurate. So kind of try to find a middle ground that's not going to take you out of reading immersion, not too orange, and kind of stay within the stone range. I always say that because it is kind of recommended. It's not too overly bright as well. You can see right here that it kind of fades away. It's a little bit extreme if you go close to it, but That's kind of the inherent nature of a glow light. There's literally no sore spots with this whatsoever. Glow lights have changed. They used to be front lit, in which light was projected onto the actual EPD. Now there is a gel layer that has LEDs built into it, so devices post 2015 or approximately have no choice but to look as good as they are. Barnes & Noble has most definitely hit the nail right on the head with this one. 300 ppi screen, physical page turn buttons, and audiobook integration with a headphone jack. For an ebook reader, it doesn't get any better than that. On the flip side, there are still no speakers, there's no SD card, and the device honestly is a little bit large, all things considered. Barnes & Noble couldn't have done a better job on this. It's absolutely a miraculous device that seems to be an amalgamation of their entire history of their device constructions as a company, retaining a lot of the things that identifies Barnes & Noble, and shows that there's no question why they're one of the tops.